And now it is time for the Patriot Church, hosted by Pastor John Vacchiano.
All right. Hey, good morning. Oh, wow, my throat already. Good morning, all you lovers of God, country, and family. We are here this morning. I'm in another secret location on my end of my summer vacation before school starts. Got a great new guest showing up today, Mike Sonneveldt. Man, thanks for being here this morning. Give you a couple quick announcements real quick. Don't forget, Fourth Sunday is coming up, the 23rd, 8:30 to 9:45. Fire Cake Breakfast will be up at 50 South Wimbrow Drive in Sebastian. 10 o'clock service for Patriot Church. It's going to be another amazing event that we're going to put on together. And then also, don't forget something special that fourth Sunday. We're going to come back together at 5 o'clock to watch an absolutely amazing movie called The Great Awakening. If you haven't seen that, I want you to come by the church and check it out. It is absolutely amazing. Gives us a great historical account of the likes of Ben Franklin and George Whitefield, John Wesley, and so many others. So it's going to be an amazing time. So that's the fourth Sunday, which is August 23rd. So we're going to be there. Flyers will be out. So when we get back into town, we'll get all those sent out to you. And we're going to have a great time with that as well. So to get started this morning, my friend, Mike Sonneveldt, man, thank you for being here. We first met because of a mutual friend, Sue Trombino. So I always like to give Sue a shout out. She's been on the show a few times. She's an amazing woman of God, just a warrior princess for God. I was talking about the battle cry of Deborah a few weeks ago, and I couldn't help but think about Sue as she's part of that whole battle cry. So she's amazing. And brother, I'm so excited that we got to meet. And you got a couple great things that you're certainly working on. And we're going to call our title this morning of our show, Be the Man the World Needs. That comes right off your website for theforge.org. I couldn't think of a better title for us to start out this morning, kind of as a springboard. And when I thought about The Forged, I couldn't help but think, of course, of Valley Forge being Patriot Church. And I just want to start out with just kind of a quick thought about Valley Forge, and I'm going to let you take the ball and run, brother. But there's a great book, great history book that I have from an author named Henry Armit Brown. And his dates are 1844 to 1878. And he on June 19th, June 19th, 1878, he finished just a great 100-year anniversary of the ending of Valley Forge. And he wrote about it in his book. And I just thought I'd throw out some quotes there from the book, because when we're talking about being a man back in the days of Valley Forge versus being a man today in America, those two couldn't be really further from two opposites, I think, at this point. And what you're doing with the Forged, I think is going to be a great help for reminding men, who we need to be. And so I'm excited to hear about that. But let's listen to some of these thoughts this morning that he wrote. Henry Armit Brown wrote about Valley Forge. So, for instance, here, let's see, it was a good place. The wind is cold and piercing on the old Gulf Road. Snowflakes have begun to fall. Who is this that toils up yonder? His footsteps stained with blood. His bare feet peep through its worn shoes. He's nearly naked from the tattered remains of only a pair of stockings. His breeches not enough to cover his nakedness. His shirt's hanging in strings. His hair disheveled. His face wan, and thin. He looks hungry. His whole appearance is of that of a man forsaken and neglected. On his shoulder, he carries a rusty gun. In the hand that grasps the stock is blue and cold. Are these soldiers that huddle together and bow their heads as they face biting cold? Is this an army that comes straggling through the valley in the blinding snow? No martial music leads them in triumph into a captured capital. No city full of good cheer and warm and comfortable home waits awaits their coming. No sound keeps time to their weary feet on the frozen ground. And in yonder forests must they find their shelter, and on the northern slope of these inhospitable hills their place of refuge. Perils shall soon assault them, more threatening than any encountered under the windows of Chew's house or by the banks of Brandywine. Trials that rarely have failed to break the fortitude of men await them here. False friends shall endeavor to undermine their virtue, and secret enemies to shake their faith. The Congress whom they serve shall prove helpless to protect them, and their country herself seem unmindful of their sufferings. Cold shall share their habitations, and hunger enter into to be their constant guest. Disease shall infest their huts by day, and famine stand guard with them through the night. Danger shall not frighten, nor temptation have power to seduce them. Doubt shall not shake their love of country, nor suffering overcome their fortitude. The powers of evil shall not prevail against them, for they are the Continental Army, and these are the hills of Valley Forge. Just thinking about the blood, the sacrifice that was given by our forefathers, brother, for our country, and look where we've come today, 250 years later, in our country, and seeing the craziness, the upside downness, the no common sense, all of that just gone. It's just amazing to see that and be able to look back at that and how that pertains really for us as men is an amazing thing. And when I first looked up your website and looked up forged.org, I just advise everybody, if you're a man or not sure yet, you need to go there, theforged.com, because it's amazing, and there's a great program you guys have put together. So so I'm just excited you're here this morning.
No,
give us some thoughts and some insight, brother.
No, and I think that word forge in the Valley Forge account is so relatable. It's such an important word in that. And so I think a lot of guys struggle with, hey, what does it mean to be a man? And one of the things I was thinking of when you were telling the account of Valley Forge is, and a lot of us have heard this quote: strong men produce good times produce weak men produce hard times produce strong men, right? And I think those strong men were the backs that built good times. And I think we've had cycles of good times and bad times in America, just like we have anywhere. And I think a lot of guys don't know what it means to be a man, right? And a lot of guys just were never raised to be men. And they wonder, what does it take to be a man, And I've thought a lot about this. And one of the things that really inspired the whole Forged story for me was figuring out, struggling with these questions myself. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a good man? What does it mean to be a strong man? And I think a lot of guys struggle with that. And a lot of guys wonder, how do I do that? How do I feel secure in being a man, and how do I step up? And all of those questions are really important. And so what we do at the Forge is we help guys answer those questions. And I think Valley Forge is a perfect example of really what I think cuts to the core of, hey, what's the difference between being a man and just being a boy, right? You could be male, but you're a boy. You could be male, but you could also be a true man. And I think Valley Forge, what it really represents is adversity and overcoming the adversity because of principle and responsibility. Typically, the difference between, we talk a lot about toxic masculinity. I'm going to go on my rant for a second.
Sure.
Toxic masculinity was all over the news waves a couple of years ago, and everybody was, pointing out how toxic guys are and traditional masculinity and all that, right? And my argument is, it's not toxic masculinity. it's what I call rotted boyhood. So every other civilization or culture has had some type of rite of passage, which is basically, okay, you are no longer a boy, now you're going to step into being a man. And they had different ways of doing that, and some extreme, some more subtle. But the fact remains, okay, you're, say, 13, 14, you are now being tested into becoming a man. And when you come back as a man, that's how the community will look at you. That's how you'll be treated. That's the responsibility and respect and authority you'll be given is as a man. We don't have that in the West. We don't have that in America. And we've got a crisis of young men who were raised by single mothers, and no shot at single mothers, but moms weren't meant to do it alone. You look at the stats, the percentages of boys in trouble and really kids in trouble in general, and typically it comes back to, hey, was there a father in the home? Even a tough, distant father is better than no father in the home. And obviously we draw the line at abuse and all that. That's a different story. But we have a crisis of young men who they go to school, they're taught by women. They come home, it's their mom only. They go to church, and their church, the things they're doing are typically led by women or centered around women. They're not getting that leadership from grown men, and so they're having to figure it out on their own. And when rotted boyhood comes into play, it's not toxic masculinity, it's rotted boyhood. What's happening? The boy hits the stage where the fruit gets picked at a rite of passage. And if the fruit doesn't get picked, what happens? It rots on the tree, right? Boyhood is pursuing your desires, not holding responsibilities, living life moment to moment. Manhood is putting away the childish things, putting away the animalistic nature of us, and stepping up into responsibility, stepping up into principle, knowing that it's not about us, it's about others, right? The two greatest commandments: love the Lord your God with everything you are, love your neighbor as yourself, right? So to me, identity and purpose, which is so integral to how to be a man,
right,
those are central to what is it in you that you can use in service of others. What's that unique thing about you? God made your personality. He designed you a certain way. How do you use that to serve others? How do you use that to serve the Lord, right? And you do that, you serve by taking responsibility. We look at Adam and Eve. Adam stepped aside on his responsibility. He withdrew from his responsibility. He was supposed to be watching over, protecting, leading Eve. He should have been in the middle of that conversation between Eve and the serpent, but he wasn't.
Right.
And so responsibility is so integral to, hey, are you competent as a man? It really translates to, are you being responsible with what you've been given? And the pathway to being responsible with what you've been given is walking through adversity and persevering through it, because there's a greater goal that you're trying to achieve. And that goal keeps you going through it, right? And there's no better way to build a man than overcoming adversity over and over and over again. And that's the forging process, right? You're in the fire, you're getting hammered, you're getting pressed, right? There'll be a bit of a cool down, back to the flame and the hammer and the fire and the press, right? And that's what sharpens you. That's what hardens you. And I don't think any man hits a point where he is completely forged and he can coast for the rest of life. But that process, he can get stronger and stronger and stronger in all the right ways. And at the end of it, he's a man who's living a forged life. So that's my soapbox. That's my entrance for you.
So that well, I was also thinking about as a sword, you have to continually be sharpened as well. So that's part of that forging process as well, right? Back to the fire, iron sharpens iron, and then we continue on and continue to fight the good fight. That's great. So give me an example maybe of you've been able to disciple men. That's part of what you're doing now with the Forged. Give us an example of somebody that maybe has been a part of that rotted boyhood, or even to be able to recognize that is probably a really big deal, I would think, because that's the first time I ever heard that term. I've heard obviously toxic masculinity and demasculinization and everything else that's been going on. Of course, that's just been craziness. But that really draws quite a picture when you think of that rotted boyhood. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to pursue this organization with what the Lord's put on my heart. I was a young adults pastor for a while, and I found myself gravitating towards mentoring. They were 18 to 25-year-old guys, and I've always found myself gravitating towards mentoring young men. I think so often your calling or your purpose is, what did you deal with or struggle with or have to overcome when you were young, right? And I struggled with that stuff. I didn't. My dad is a good man. I don't discount him at all. My dad worked hard for the family, but there wasn't a whole lot of come alongside, let me show you how to be a man,
Right.
It just is what it is. So I had to kind of figure it out on my own. And I think I didn't want other guys to have to go through with that. Here's a cool just example of, I love seeing the lights turn on for somebody and somebody get it. And I had a young man who I was mentoring him, discipling him, and he was really struggling with, every morning he'd wake up just angry, depressed, frustrated, all of that. Now, there's probably a lot going on, but when I talked to him, I said, look, I want you to do something, because I understand that. I understand the before your eyes even open, you don't want to get out of bed. I said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to specifically thank the Lord for certain things before your eyes even open. As soon as you're awake, you're going to start thanking him. You're going to give gratitude. I said, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to feel like it. Do it every single day. And he came back to me probably a month and a half later, and he said it had completely changed his perspective on life, completely changed how he approached life. And I think so often we know what we're supposed to do, or we have an inkling of this isn't right, but we don't step up. And the success stories that I see is so often just being there to assure the guy, yeah, this is the right path. You just need to do it. I've got other friends who, I've worked with them for a long time of, hey, what does it mean to be disciplined? Right? It means making the choice when you need to make the choice, even though you don't feel like it. And man, he's losing weight. He's taking charge in areas that he needs to take charge. He's seeing the world in a different way. And I think so often, I think all of us need to have somebody who's one level above us. And it may be different people for different areas, but especially as guys, we need to have somebody that we can go to and say, hey, I'm struggling in this area, or I feel weak in this area. I need help in this area. And that guy who's one level, two levels above us can show us the ropes and help guide us. And that's, I think, the biggest success that I typically have is it's guys who they're so tired of autopilot that they know something needs to change and they're ready to change it. Because there's a difference between, yeah, I want something to change, but I'm not going to do anything to do it. And I'm so tired of where I'm at that this has to change. And I think that's the first big step in taking responsibility is recognizing I'm not happy where I'm at, and everybody around me is suffering because I'm not fulfilling the potential that's been placed in my heart and God
Yeah,
has built me with. I'm not being a good steward of that, and it's
sure.
time to change that.
Yeah, it's an amazing revelation, for sure. As a man, when you begin to understand these concepts, these truths that you're talking about, because purpose of life, why am I here? It's the age-old question, that whole deal, and understanding that we do have a purpose, and that purpose is really is God breathed for us, isn't it? I mean, He created us in His image. And again, I always go back, as I'm so glad you pointed out the whole thing with Adam and Eve. I mean, because that is exactly what took place. He failed, chose not to be that good steward as God told him of everything in the garden. And here he is, allowing his wife to have this conversation with this literal creep, right? This creeper, and there it is. And it's like, where was he? And we all,
Yeah.
the old school was always want to blame Eve, that kind of thing. And no, it was the man failing in his duty, not just like a manly duty, but of a God calling. It's such a huge thing. And whether you're there or whether you're in the pig slop, and you come to this realization that, again, yeah, it's not just the failing of family, friends. It's first and foremost, it's the God call, this call of understanding that I have sinned, he said, against God. And then he went home to reconcile with his dad. And just a beautiful picture there as well. So it's amazing. And I think as you've been talking with different age men over the course of your ministry, everybody, there's something changes, I think, from generation to generation. You got the guys who maybe same with my dad. My dad, definite provider, took care of us, kept us safe, kind of thing. But again, to come alongside, right? And I think that helps as we become grandfathers. We do that more with our grandkids now. We understand how powerful that is when we want to hang out with our grandkids. But it was that generation of, do as I say, not as I do. I always hear that quote a lot. Where I'm telling you what to do, but don't watch what I'm doing, kind of thing. And that was detrimental for many, for whatever generation that falls into. But I think today, my goodness, today we are in such disarray in our country, especially we're seeing. I'm watching some great men of God like Tim Tebow. Man, he's just this whole thing he's going after with the child trafficking and getting in front of Congress now. I mean, what a God, what a godly man, of course, in this calling and using that platform of sports, and then just getting them to that forefront. I mean, just living in that whole call of God, and seeing where here we are in America, the number one how did he say it? The number one purchaser of pornography and trafficking and everything. It's in the United States, and it's mind-boggling. And then we have the open border thing, and then you have the whole pushback of toxic masculinity. I mean, it's just wow. Heads are spinning, and I think it's just to create chaos and confusion, so that men don't really know, where they really need to be.
Yeah, and I think one of the largest or most powerful attacks of Satan is if he can get you confused, right? And really he's the author of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
If he can get you confused about who you are, identity, purpose, and we see that with the whole transgender movement, right? Is really at the base of it, what is it? Confusion about your identity. Who are you?
Right.
And that's going on wholesale for men. And I will say, as the hope is, at least in my generation, I see something interesting of I just turned 40 this year. And so I'll speak for, say, the 30 to 50-year-old kind of generation. There is this attitude of we're sick of it. And we want to be good men, and we want to step up. And you're noticing, these fitness groups pop up on Saturday mornings. You're noticing men's retreats and men's groups that seem to have vigor and attitude, a good attitude, but they have an energy about them. You're seeing men's conferences, a new breath of wind in them. You're seeing, especially honestly, as much as social media is such a powerful force for destruction, it's also a powerful force for good, because there are really solid influencers that are helping men understand you should step up, you need to step up, but you can step up. And I'm watching guys step up. And now, obviously, there's a massive percentage of guys who just aren't and probably never will, unfortunately. But I was at the 1613 conference the other weekend, and what encouraged me so much about it was there were 6,000 guys there, over 20,000 guys watching. And while I was there, you would be amazed at how many guys looked like they at least attempted to work out. They almost to the T, all of them, you could tell, were husbands and fathers and working men. And, it was very much a collection of guys who they just want to be good men. They want to be great husbands. They want to be great fathers. They want to be hard workers, good business owners. They want to be fit. They want to be active. They want to take on responsibility. And so it is encouraging I think we're so sick of stuff being shoved down our throat. We're done with it.
Right.
We don't care what the society says about us anymore, because they're going to call us toxic. They're going to call us harmful. They're going to call us, all the names in the book. Oh, well, oh, well, call me what you want, and I've seen stuff written about me. What was it? And you'll find this funny. There was a journalist who came to one of my talks and labeled me as muscular and tight clothed. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it.
I'll take it. Right.
I'll take it.
That's a compliment.
So it's like, there is this breed of guys that are stepping up that just don't care.
Right.
And it's like, heck yeah, let's move forward. Those are the guys I want to walk with,
Yeah, that's good stuff. So I'm a little older. I'm in the 60 above category. So there's of course a different generational upbringing, I think. Of course, but being in youth ministry for 30 years, ministry total 30 years, and seeing, like you said, there was a major problem with this or this reasoning for this rot of boyhood, like you said before, was this part about no man in the household, or broken marriages. So many. Many times you call the house, you visit or whatever. It's the mom's there or the grandmom's there, but there's no real male figure, which really has been detrimental to our young men, of course, in that whole training up and the whole upbringing there. Do you see that changing at all? I know, because prior, which is really interesting, looking back at history, prior to that, that was like the norm, the father figure, and that whole in the home, leading probably up to, what would you say, the 50s, even 40s, 50s, and then really looking at different backgrounds of Black history and so forth. I mean, that was home ownership, father, mother, they're all there kind of thing. And now the 60s come along, and then things start taking a drastic turn for the worse. And I don't know if we've really probably have not recovered from that, looking at what's going on today. But I still think, like you said, there's hope. There's hope in that. So what do you think about that part of that? I'm sure that comes up in discussions.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Yeah. There's probably a multitude of factors, but I think with the sexual revolution of the 60s and to be honest, the invention of the birth control pill, right? And then you had no fault divorce passed. What was it that right at the beginning of the 70s? You had Roe v. Wade that moved through. You had this cultural push of sexual liberation, really of women, and at the same time liberation from men in general, which you step back and you look at it, man, how spiritual is that, right? And you saw this communication, and you look at especially the feminist movement. The founders of the feminist movement were, to a T, bitter, childless women, most of them lesbians, right? And there was this messaging that came out that you need a career, you shouldn't rely on a man, you need to go pursue everything in life, right? Go grab. And you're watching now women who are my age, especially, who are realizing they were sold a bill of goods and there's no coming back from it. You know, they pursued the career, they went through all the men, not saving themselves, not trying to pursue traditional marriage, always told themselves, I'll have kids later, I need to pursue career. And they look back and they go, I can't fix this. There's no going back now. I think marriage is in a tough spot right now because neither sex seems to trust each other at this point. And there's a movement that grows. It's called the MRA movement, the men's rights activist movement or whatever. And their proposition, which seems to resonate with a lot of young guys, is don't do marriage. Women aren't worth it. They'll just take your money. They'll divorce you. They're not in it for you, right? And so this messaging is really getting harmful because it's pitting everybody against each other. Right. I think the hope or the light that we have is if, especially the church, but traditional value men and women can show how different it is living a godly traditional life. You know, when a marriage is good and the husband and wife are happy and the children are happy and healthy and they're responsible and they're disciplined people, and you know, maybe they don't make millions and millions and they're not the high-powered lawyer, but man, they seem content and peaceful. That is communicating to the next generation. And so you hope you can communicate that clearly enough to the next generation that both young men and young women say, I see the pitfalls of the choices other people were making. I'm not going that route, you know? And I think that's the hope, is we're the prayerful example of, hey, another generation can turn this around. They don't have to follow the way that society was telling everybody to go for decades.
Yeah. It's so important to be able to discern that deception around you. And it's just like the father of lies, that author of confusion, and it wasn't just an Adam thing, but of course on the Eve side of things, women have obviously distrust for men and so forth, and then hearing all the other, on the other side, there's that whole you don't need a man kind of thing and that whole deal. But I always go back to scripture where it talks about in Ephesians, where some men like to read part of a scripture and don't complete it. Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. And I haven't found a woman yet who has told me, you know, I wouldn't like that. All right. That wouldn't be good for me. I mean, what woman in her right mind would not want to feel and experience and embrace that kind of love from her husband? And what a powerful proclamation in a marriage that would be to the world around them. It's just amazing to get a guy, to bring him and show him that truth in God's word and just be totally, saturated with that truth in his life would be so transforming.
Yeah. And obviously there's a role to play for women in a marriage, and I wish more women were mentoring young women. And I have had several conversations with another guy who he has men's movement stuff that he has going on. And we both talked about, boy, it doesn't seem like women are mentoring each other, which they need, right? And that being the case, we as much as hey, it's on the responsibility of the man, and I'm about to say what his responsibility is. I'd love to see women stepping up and really mentoring each other. Of this is how to be a godly woman in a marriage, and this is how to respect your husband, right? Because men are told to love, women are told to respect, right? And what does respect mean? Respect means to trust, to follow, to be there for, in the sense of I believe in you. And it's funny. I'll tell guys, look, your wife really at the end of the day has two modes. It's either safe mode or survival mode.
Right.
And you can tell women who are in survival mode because it's like they're white knuckling the steering wheel. They feel like they have to be in charge of everything because they don't trust you to where they can get into safe mode. And so they're uptight and they're stressing about things that we as men, that's our job and our responsibility to worry about and concern ourselves about. But a woman who's in survival mode, she has hit the point where she doesn't trust you. Sure. Right? She doesn't trust your leadership. She doesn't trust that you're going to provide and protect for her. The woman in safe mode is free to flourish because you have gone and done the work so that she can be safe and flourish and nourish the children and nourish the home and pursue what God has put on her heart. Men, our responsibility really is at the end of the day, protect, right? Provide and preside, right? So protect, we are there to ensure physical and spiritual safety for our wives and our children and our community, right? We're providing. We're supposed to go out and risk ourselves to bring back sustenance, right? We bring back the meal. We go kill the deer or whatever. We go out into nature, fight off the predators to get the deer, right? To sound barbaric about it. We bring it back. A wife that a guy craves is one who then takes that and she respects and honors what you did, your sacrifice so much that she creates a beautiful, awesome meal out of that food you went and risked your life for, right? And so now, obviously, Western culture has changed. Provide is not go out into the jungle and risk the jaguar to kill the food and bring it back. It is go out into the work world, which we're risking our reputation, we're risking our abilities, we're risking our career, our achievement, we're risking our time to go out and earn and bring back, right? Now, we're in a culture where, unfortunately, women so often have to participate out in the work world because they need a two-income family. My family, we're one income, right? My wife homeschools. She's enveloping the kids and the home, and she's doing all of that. And I say, look, let me go figure out the finances and the provision of the family, right? And then there's preside. I'm supposed to cast the vision of where the family is going. Like, what has God put on our hearts to do? Where does He want us to go as a family? And it's not that she doesn't have a say in the decisions, but I better have the vision, because if I don't have a vision, how the heck am I supposed to lead, right? And any good leader understands they better be clear with their vision in order to communicate it to those that are leading, right? And so when a man is stepping up into those areas of responsibility and he's really doing what he's supposed to be doing, you're going to see a healthy wife and healthy kids. And they're going to leave a legacy in that sense.
Yeah. And again, that truth, that picture, isn't a man with his thumb over his wife and family, ruling
No,
with an iron rod. That's not
no.
biblical. You go back to, of course, Genesis again, and where Adam was alone, and God said it's not good, so He creates a helper along. Now, they've even taken that word out of context for generations. You've seen it in the TV shows. Go back to maybe somebody like Archie Bunker or whatever, seeing that interesting, dialogue going
Right.
on there with Edith and all that. And she always comes back with some strong wisdom at many points. But even like the last few decades, different. I'm trying to think of some of the shows, but the men have been looked at as the goofy, out of shape, barely makes it. He's dumb kind of thing.
Homer
She's always
Simpson syndrome.
Homer Simpson syndrome. Yeah, she's picking on him all the time. He's not good enough, kind of thing, and that whole deal. Where I'm trying to think of that one, King of something. What was that guy's name? That he was. I think he worked for like UPS or something, or the post office, and here he is. He's this guy who's just basically a loser, but he's got a real pretty wife, kind of thing. That whole deal.
Yep.
So it's back and forth like that, and so we're constantly feeding the generations after generations this non-biblical mindset of what the family's supposed to be like, and there's that rotten fruit, right, of all that. Again, we're seeing it played out in our day, and of course, I think that has aided in a negative way to people maybe living together, not making the true commitment of the covenant of marriage, not understanding that word at all, what it really means to covenant with someone like that. It's not just, hey, we'll try this for a while, and if we don't like it, hey, we'll go our separate ways. Things, we go back against the vows that we've taken. No matter what, we're going to stay together, kind of thing. The D word's not going to come up in our conversation. We're going to work this thing out if we truly believe God has brought us together. We're going to do whatever it takes to fulfill that promise we made to one another, that covenant. You've seen that. We've seen that. Obviously, the divorce rate for years now has been 50-50, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian or whatever. It's more now, of course. What do you think? How do you address that topic of, say, living together with younger couples? You could address differently, I think, than, say, maybe to an older group of people who maybe are under retirement age, and so they choose maybe not to get married, because if they do, then of course now they're penalized for retirement or whatever. There's so many different dynamics there. Anything like that you want to share? Any words of wisdom on that?
Yeah. When my wife and I got married, we drew a hard rule. Now, I'm a very sarcastic guy. I love humor. I love making jokes. I love self-deprecating humor and all of that. But we really took an oath with each other that we would not even joke about divorce. Like, that word just doesn't get spoken in our house. It is off limits. To even in a passing comment, we just don't say the word, right? And I think that's been helpful, because even when she and I have rough patches, I know that neither of us are leaning into maybe this is an option. We're both tied into it, right? So we have to figure this out. We got to solve this problem. And I think part of the issue with especially the living together situation is, I saw this repeatedly with young adults. They meet somebody, they quote unquote fall in love, and they decide this is a person for me. And when you start pulling apart, well, what do you like about this person? What is drawing you to this person? It's so surface level, right? And people jumped into marriage, and unfortunately, the ease of divorce, it put in people's minds, probably more of a subconscious level, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just get divorced, right? And so you see this flippancy about marriage. Like, marriage should be a very serious covenant, like very serious. We're about to make a life-changing decision. We're about to agree to stick together forever on this. And I think the whole living together thing is a perverse incentive of, well, we'll try it out and we'll see what happens. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and we'll split ways. And that is avoiding the reality or the responsibility of the covenant, right? And unfortunately, it is for people who see the financial side of it or the tax side of it, the legal side of it. I'm frustrated that the government shouldn't be in marriage at all, right? Like that's not constitutional. That's not part of their purview. It's not even. I would argue that it's not part of a state's purview. It doesn't matter. It's a religious institution. That it's a religious covenant. Why is it so many religions have marriage, right? Because it's something that, and this gets into a greater discussion, but
sure.
So often you'll see consistencies between religions in certain aspects. And let's say marriage, right? Marriage is a ritual or a sacrament that a lot of different religions have. I say that ties back to the truth of it, because when Adam and Eve were with God, God was teaching them about how to be human, right? And when they were kicked out of the garden, because they had eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they had to start learning about life on their own, right? And the closer they are to God, the more they're learning, right? But it's easy for people to walk away from God and start to figure out their own things, right? And so different religions got started. But I was thinking about this morning. You've got animal sacrifice. Isn't it interesting that so many different religions use animal sacrifice throughout creation, right? You've got marriage, which is a sacrament that is seen all over the earth, right? You have certain aspects that are consistent in but they're in their own ways, right? Why is marriage such a sacred institution across various religions and cultures and civilizations? Well, that says to me, it's God handed it down. It's a spiritual practice. It's a personal practice. It is a covenant between two people to strengthen the community. And then the state gets involved, and the state says, well, we'll throw tax benefits this way, but if you get divorced, well, then you're going to pay her. And Christ even said, look, Moses gave you divorce because you were demanding it. Like this divorce wasn't in the original plan. And so I think while it's unfortunate the state has gotten its hands involved in marriage, and so therefore you have to deal with that, to me, par for the course, it's still vital covenant that I think young people would do well to really respect it with what it deserves. And when they do, they'll be much more careful about who they choose, and they'll end up choosing somebody a lot higher quality.
Right.
And on the other end, older people, guys, we have to go change stuff at the ballot box then. And let's not start giving up our spiritual responsibility because the physical world gets hard.
Right.
And that is the crux of adversity in a person's life is, will you maintain your responsibilities and what you've been given to steward even through the adversity?
Yeah.
Akin to, would Christ walk away from the cross because he knew the flogging was ahead?
Right.
Right? He walked through that adversity, and there's spiritual connotation to the flogging, but at the end of the day, he went through that adversity because the goal was, I have to be on the cross because I have to die for the sins of man. I can't assume my responsibility because it's going to get hard and I'm going to have to step through adversity and the world's going to attack me. It's we've got responsibility. We better step up.
Great. That's a great point. We got a few minutes left, about 8 or so. Let me let's get to where somebody's watching they want to get a hold of you, they need to find out what's actually going on. Some of the things you've said have really resonated with them. How do they plug in with you?
Right. So they can come to theforged.org. And by all means, there's easy access, contact us forms. They can reach out that way. They can reach out to me, Mike at forgingrevelation.com. Forgingrevelation.com. They can also, I've got social media. Most of my social media handles are Become the Forged. But I also have a podcast that they're more than welcome to check out, The Forged Man's Podcast. The Forged Man's Podcast. I try to do it every day in the morning. It's only 5 to 8 minutes long. They're quick hits, thoughts about, how to view things, how to overcome things, that kind of thing. I really wanted to do something that you can start your day out right with.
Cool.
But by all means, come to the website, leave me a message. I do have a book on there, a couple of books. My flagship book is Become Forged. I call it a toolbox. It's really a toolbox for body, soul, and spirit. And then it does have a workbook that you can get with it. And I've run groups through that and get a lot of positive feedback on it. But yeah.
Very cool. So what about for a church leader who wants to bring it into his whole church?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got
do a conference or stuff like that. What do you want to do for that?
I do speaking tours. I do conferences. The book and workbook works well as a men's Bible study or men's group study. I had one guy in Texas. There was a church out in Texas that did it, and one guy, he quit Pepsi because of the book and workbook. And I know sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, he was like, you don't understand. Like I was addicted to Pepsi, tons of it every single day. And I've got a chapter in there talking about, sugar and taking care of your body and all that. And he quit Pepsi because of it, So sometimes the changes are simple to be made.
Yeah, that's true. And we do need to keep having that transformation take place in our lives, mind, body, soul, and spirit, right?
Yep.
And then tell us also, excuse me, how we really got together about the Oak and Banyan. Of your company for websiting and stuff like that.
No, I appreciate you giving a shout out to that. So Forged is a passion project. I got to pay the bills. So I started my own marketing SEO company. And so it's called Oak and Banyan because I love oak and banyan trees. And my focus is helping especially small businesses. I do work with authors as well, but small businesses, organizations, figure out their online presence. I'm just passionate about SEO. I've got a writing background, and so I help small businesses and organizations start to get on the map online and build their presence across all the different areas that they can be on. And so I help build websites. I help start social media profiles. I help kick up social media, I write articles, that kind of thing. And I'm having fun on your project, John. Like this is a blast for me because patriotism, history, faith. It's all very dear to my heart. So I'm honored.
Be on the lookout for the new Patriot Church website. Not compliments.
Here we go.
Put together by Oak and Banyan. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
Can't wait for that. So we're excited about that. Any final thoughts as far as excuse me, wisdom that you want to pour out on young men, old men?
Yeah, I think I heard a video one time where a guy said if a guy hasn't gotten his life together by 40, he's done. And it's always rubbed me the wrong way. I believe no matter how old you are, you can take a step.
Yeah.
And I think so often guys look at it and they say, it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. I can't overcome this. And I'm a firm believer in that old Chinese proverb, right? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, right? And so my encouragement to every single guy out there is there's probably an area where you want to improve on. and maybe there's a lot of areas. What is one small single step that you can do today? Maybe it's working out, just do a couple of push-ups. Go tomorrow, just do a couple of push-ups. Maybe do a body squat. Just do something. I know a guy who I'm going to have him on my podcast pretty quick here. He was 45, laying on the couch, just, fat, lazy, middle-aged. And he was like, no, I can't do this. So he started working out 5 minutes a day. Now he runs ultra marathons. He's planning to do a 250 miler, right? And this guy routinely runs 100 miles. You never know where it's going to take you. Just take one step and just keep taking small steps. So
that's great words of wisdom, because as you get my age now, I'm just over the 60 barrier there. Some of the guys I meet feel like, it's over. We can't change, can't teach an old dog new tricks, all that, lingo that we've heard for so many years. And it's just not true. No. I think Moses was 40 when he really got a call to begin something new in life right there. Right. And it happens time and time again. So yeah, you're not too old. And it's just a matter of having that desire for us to give yourself to Jesus, man. Let him just begin to transform your mind, body, soul, and spirit, and move forward. So, man, God bless you, brother. Thanks for coming on today. It's been amazing. I'm looking forward to doing some more things with you with the Forged, because I got an area or two that needs some forging in my own life. I know my folks probably think I'm perfect, but I'm not. So those folks at the Church at the Cross know that, but we always joke around like that. But let me leave us with a great quote this morning from the Reverend Matthias Burnett. And here's his words: "Finally, ye whose power it is to save or destroy your country, consider well the important trust which God has put into your hands. To God and posterity, you are accountable for them. Let not your children have reason to curse you for giving up those rights and prostrating those institutions which your fathers delivered to you." Amen. So we want to become the men the world needs us to be, that our wives need us to be, the husbands and fathers, and that God has called us to be. So thank you, my brother, for being with us this morning. God bless you and your precious family, and keep on fighting the good fight.
Amen. Bless you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, brother. I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right.
You've been listening to Patriot Church Radio. Hear all past episodes at patriotchurchradio.transistor.fm.